Hey, welcome to HR Famous, brought to you by Kinetics, the leading RPO recruiting firm for growth companies. Named by HRO Today as the top midsize RPO provider, Kinetics uses its unique skill-based recruiter model to deliver on RPO engagements, allowing them to customize scope to meet your unique hiring needs. If you have recruiting challenges and want to consider RPO as a solution, give Kinetics a call. Find them online at kineticshr.com. HR Famous is also brought to you by HRU Tech, a contingent staffing firm specializing in engineering, IT, and technically related placements across multiple industries. If you're looking for technical talent or searching for a career, look no further than HRU Tech. Find them online at hrutech.com and call them today.
Hey everybody, we're back with another edition of HR Famous. I'm taking the lead today. I'm in the driver's seat. Tim Sackett coming at you with my good friends Kris Dunn and Jessica Lee. Jessica, we were just laughing talking about your kids singing Hamilton, and we all started humming the King song. How are you doing?
I'm good. They're so cute. They really love those Schuyler sisters, and they're quite amused that Peggy, just seems like the left out one. It's so cute.
Definitely. It's kind of almost like a Disney, like a classic Disney narrative, like the ugly stepsister, like Peggy, you're going to be shoved over here.
But by the way, I'm looking around at my desk and I'm actually quite disgusted with myself because I don't know if you guys fall into this rut where you just don't leave your desk and you're chained to it. And I have paper plates, wrappers of things. Like, where is housekeeping? Come clean this up. My gosh.
I know. Housekeeping from the Marriott, executive yelling for her housekeeping to come clean up her desk. That's nice. KD, how's BHAM treating you?
It's great. It's day 127. Who's counting? Really?
Isn't it way more than 127?
Yeah, I don't know. I do like the fact, I feel like Jay Lee is like, I think our overall rating of Hamilton is coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Because her kids just locked
She jumped all over Hamilton. She was like, it kind of sucks. And now her kids love it. She's like, oh my gosh, Hamilton's the best.
Yeah. No, I'm saying my kids are the cutest. I'm not saying Hamilton's the best. I'm saying my kids are the cutest.
Yeah, but the more you listen to those songs, you get locked in.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, pretty good. So, hey, guys, I want to start us off with an article I found that I thought was completely funny. Just because, we all know how hard it is to make six figures. Like it's not something that just kind of drops out of the sky. And so CNBC, they have like a special section called Make It, and they have a career section, and they actually have some good stuff. So they had an article that says 20 jobs that pay over $100,000 with the least competition. And so these are the jobs that if you want to make $100,000, you go tell your kid, hey, go to college and look at this because you can make $20,000 and no one's going to be competing. It's based on medium salary and then actual number of jobs open. And so I'll run down the list. I'll probably skip some because some of them are similar, right, in nature. Number 20, by the way, is the only one that I found that I really don't have any clue what it is. It's called engagement manager. Do you guys know what an engagement manager is? I had to look it up, by the way.
Is there, is there any other description? Because that could be like an engagement manager of a consulting company.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So
a client engagement manager.
So that's basically the kind of the gist of what this is. There's like over 250,000 of these openings. I will tell you, when you get onto like the Google and you start looking at Google jobs, the title of engagement manager is widely varied. Like you can go to a supermarket and have like a customer engagement manager job. So it's a little bit of a misnomer, but it's meant to be somebody that's going to work with clients to understand how do we utilize our technology into your processes more and blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a pseudo sales engineer type role minus the engineering technical aspect. And then we get to things like technical program manager, which to me is a little bit similar. As might be implementation stuff there, front-end engineer, security architect, optometrist. I have two good friends who are optometrists. I think that's kind of like, isn't that the lowest level of doctor you can be is optometrist?
Careful. I think my brother-in-law is one.
No, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking of all the doctors. Isn't that has to be? Well, I don't know. Maybe a psychologist.
Or are they a doctor though? Like there's a difference between an optometrist and ophthalmologist. So there's that whole thing.
But they're both doctors. An optometrist is a doctor but they can't have surgery and they can't like do just certain meds. Where an ophthalmologist, I think, can do surgery and like do different meds, but they're still doctors. Pharmacy manager, which by the way, you have to be a pharmacist to be a pharmacy manager,
Right?
Which is already super difficult. I mean, to be a pharmacist is hard to get. Radiologist, another doctor. Security engineer. So there's a lot of like security architect, security engineer, a lot of cyber stuff there. Physician, technical architect, information security engineer, systems manager, a medical manager, which I'm not quite sure. I'm guessing that's somebody who runs like a medical group of doctors. So I don't know if they have to be a doctor or not, but that's number 8 on the list. That's pretty high up. A PA, a physician assistant, which again is a lot of school and hard to get into. So really, a physician assistant's kind of the dumbest doctor, right? Because you can still, like a PA, you can still go and say, "Hey, I have pain in my back," and they'll say, "Okay, here's some Demerol or something." Like you can still get good drugs from a PA, but they're not really a doctor. And I say that knowing I could never be like, people are going to go, "Oh my gosh, Tim's called PAs dumb." They're not dumb. They're just dumber than a real doc. But I could never be a PA. Like I'm not, I couldn't even make it through the class where they have to cut open like a frog. So put myself in my situation. Pediatrician, a physician hospitalist, which is just a doctor at a hospital that has to check on like all the people that don't have real doctors. And then a systems architect was number 4, top 3. So here we go. Software development engineer, number 3 of the least competition over 6-figure jobs. A psychiatrist is number 2. So not a lot of people want to be psychiatrists. I think it's because you have to deal with like crazy people, right?
There's a high suicide rate amongst psychiatrists.
Yeah. I think it's, for me, of all the doctors, like if you're a doctor, like you're a cancer doctor or you're this doctor or you're an orthopedic surgeon, like there's a plan to try to fix the person. I think if you're a psychiatrist, man, like there's so often like you just can't fix these people. Like they're so whacked out and there's nothing you can do to really help them. And yet you have to carry that guilt around with you because you couldn't fix them.
You sound like you're talking about being in HR. Is it really any different?
No, probably similar for sure. I mean, definitely similar. So for you guys, what do you think the number 1 is? And I will tell you, I'll give you a hint. It had nothing to do with any of the other ones I just talked about on the list. It's completely different.
Algorithm whisperer.
That's kind of IT related though, Katie. Come on.
It's deeper. An algorithm's
It's not
different.
medical or technical. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Is it being an Instagram influencer?
Ooh, that would be a good one. But that's a lot of competition. That's every moron in the world is an Instagram influencer at this point, except for me because I can't get enough followers.
Tell us.
I'm ready to hear it.
Investment banker.
So they're in demand, huh?
Potentially, yeah. And by the way, I mean, one of the higher salaries too. So of course, being an investment banker is, I guess, one of the bigger ones out there. What did you guys think? What would have been one that you would have said, "Hey, I should have been out there"? Least competition over $100,000.
Well, I'll tell you what was probably on the list 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and it's no longer on the list is actually pharmacist. You said pharmacy manager, but pharmacist not on the list. And I think like there's going to always be this like pendulum swing of like everyone's going to think that's the place to be, and then everyone's going to go to that school, do that thing, become that job, and then it's oversaturated, and then robots can do your job, and then it falls off the list. So I think like seeing how these lists change would be interesting over time. Yeah,
well, and I also think it's based on the person who writes it, because I think sometimes you just don't have insight to certain industries that we know, or that you might, if you have a specific industry, like pharmacy is a great one, right? Like when I recruited pharmacists, we used to laugh that all you had to do is count by 2. And like they would take such offense to that joke, and then I thought it was funny. But like there was such a need for pharmacists that they could pretty much say and get anything they wanted. For me, I just had one on the top of my head that I was thinking of that was completely separate.
Nurses aren't on the list?
No, because they're under 6 figures without their overtime. I mean, depending on the marketplace, right? So this is kind of overall average.
I think the one that seems most accessible and all that is software developer. I think that's the one that seems most accessible to the widest range of kids coming out of school. So that's my thing. I think the other, the list we need, the list we need is top earning potential for a liberal arts degree.
Oh, that would be a good one.
Because that, the list you have, like that you just ran us through, is so like specific. A lot of it requires a lot of education. And, bottom line is you could look at your kids. We all have super smart kids, but we could look at them and say, why can't you be more like this? And by the time they get 20, they'll say, hey, why couldn't you have given me better DNA? How about that?
Yeah, right. So I have to share a story that is directly related to this list, and then also to what Katie just said about the liberal arts. So, I buy a lot of Toyotas, right? Katie,
yeah, me too.
My kid, because I love the Toyota brand.
Let's go.
Also my kids just tend to want to crack them up all the time and run them into shit. So I buy a lot of Toyotas. So a few weeks ago, Cam, totaled his car. Everyone's safe. Everyone, is fine. But we had to get a new Toyota for him. So we go buy a used Camry. So go in, find out the dude selling me the Camrys, by the way, is a phenomenal salesperson. So right there on the list, least amount of competition over 6 figures, be a really great salesperson at a used car lot at a major, like, good brand. And how do I know that he makes over 6 figures? So we're talking after we close the deal, and he goes, oh, where do you live? You live in DeWitt. Oh, yeah. Oh, I just bought a house in DeWitt that I'm going to move into this weekend. Happens to be kind of in my neighborhood, but not in my neighborhood. It was in the better neighborhood than mine.
Right.
My neighborhood.
Next level up.
Double what my house is worth. So this dude is the number one Toyota used car salesman in the country of all the Toyota dealerships. Sold over 80 cars in July alone, and just bought a house double my value in the neighborhood that's way better than mine in my neighborhood.
By the way, though, are you assuming, though, what is Mr. Used Car Salesman's wife's job? And perhaps she is also a high income earner, landing them in that nice neighborhood. Of course.
She was a surgeon, but we didn't talk about that. No, I didn't dig into that. All I know is that he was working while the wife and the 2 kids were moving all their stuff into this giant home that they had just purchased. So I'm assuming he grinds it out and sells just a crap ton of cars, and he's making really good. I'm thinking, think about that. 80 cars in a month, Katie. 80 cars in a month. What's the average commission on a car? Let's say it's $1,000. That's 80 grand in the month. Let's say it's 500. It's still 40 grand in a month. Like that's good. That's good payment there. You make a lot of money.
Was this like an AutoNation type of place?
Toyota dealership. Yeah, he was the number one car salesman in all of Toyota dealerships in the U.S.
Well, I love the sales pitch on how the youth of the nation should sell cars.
Yeah,
I think it's awesome.
Well, you hear this, I'm going after Cam right now, right? Like, I'm Cameron, get out there and sell some cars, you moron.
Jay Lee's not buying your car salesman or salesperson, excuse me, pitch.
Yeah,
but I get it. I do want the liberal arts thing, and I think your point's like valid, Tim. Being a great salesperson is there. I would tell you, I just had this conversation with somebody else today. A lot of being a good salesperson, and this could come to recruiting as well. Like, if you're in a commission-based recruiting role, some of that has to do with the patch you get in. I think part of it's skills, but part of it is like, how much traffic do you get? How good's the dealership? Like, what's the brand you're working for? Yep. And do they really have their game in place to get all that done?
Hey, go be a car salesman at a Tesla dealership. You're never selling. You're just literally introducing people to the car that they're going to buy, because they're coming in to buy. No one goes to a Tesla dealership going, I don't want a Tesla. Like, no, you're buying a Tesla. Like,
I won't even go into a Tesla delership.
Really?
I haven't either.
Because I think I'd love to have one. But I don't want to do it. And I feel like if I go in,
you're sold.
I'll be hooked.
I go in and I let my kids climb around in the car.
The white interior.
I'm like, get in there. Let's test it out.
I will tell you when I watched this guy and I bought the Camry, like I already knew I was coming in to buy the Camry. Like I knew here's the one I wanted, it's used, it's this many miles, boom. It was going to happen regardless. And I'm thinking, by the way, he was selling, he sold 2 other cars at the exact same time I was there. He was working with 3 of us and sold all 3 of us. And I'm like, he wasn't really selling. He was almost just like
transacting, facilitating.
I mean,
big group hug at the end.
It wasn't hard sales at all, and I'm like, man, I should go sell cars because I could do what he did, and I could buy the house next to him and be in the better neighborhood. That's all I'm saying, KD. We should sell cars.
I just did, yeah.
That would be an awesome podcast.
I'm really not buying
car sales.
Yeah, story of like your customers and selling cars. I think that'd be a good podcast.
So this segment has probably gone on too long, but Tim, in 30 seconds, what made him a great car salesperson?
Oh, he instantly builds a trustworthy rapport with you. Like I didn't feel like he was going to try to sell me anything. At the same time, I felt like automatically within a couple of minutes, felt like he's going to give me a decent deal. Like he's not going to, I'm not going to get the best deal, but he's not going to try to take advantage of me either. And he could literally care less if I walked out. Sometimes you're there and the desperation of the guy selling you the car is like, oh my God. So
yeah. Quickest way to build credibility like that is to tell people what they shouldn't do and to give it the appearance that it's costing you money.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey friends, Marnie Robbins here, host of Vibe Makers, a podcast now on the Work Defined Network. Look, we all know workplace culture doesn't come from a slide deck. Gross. It comes from people. So on Vibe Makers, I talk to the folks shaping the experience of work from the inside out. The HR and people ops folk, founders, leaders, and misfits building culture through small bets, big beliefs, and a whole lot of trial and error. No fluff. Well, maybe a little fluff. But mainly just candid talk about what happens when you stop duct taping your culture together. Come check us out. Listen to Vibe Makers wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, so we're gonna move on. So what we want to talk about today is the big Uber Lyft California appeals court kind of ruling. So just this week they got a stay. So at first, what was going to happen, and this is called Assembly Bill 5, AB 5, which is really trying to reclassify rideshare drivers from contractors to employees. And both, basically, Lyft had just come right out and said, hey, if this happens, we are leaving the state of California. Uber was they kind of said, hey, we'll have to pause our operations to try to figure this out. And maybe potentially we'll find a way to hire people as employees in California and still do this. But so there's a 3-prong test that takes place, right, to determine that this is because of this AB 5 that California is trying to do. There's a 3-prong test. And so the first 2 are kind of typical. It's what we're used to, right? Is the worker are they free from the control and direction of the hiring entity? The second one is, does the worker perform work outside of the usual course of the hiring entity's business? So are they outside of the actual headquarters of Uber or Lyft, which all of these people would be? What California did was add in a third one, which is the worker is customarily engaged in an independently established trade, occupation, or business of the same nature as the work performed, which again automatically throws almost every single person who classifies himself as a contractor as an employee in the state of California. KD.
What was most interesting when all this was going down, and I know there's been a quick stay, and all this going on, which will probably be eliminated pretty quickly. I thought a lot of the blush, and I'll throw it back to you or Jay Lee as I continue to soak on this. I thought a lot of the blush that, hey, we're leaving California. We have to suspend operations. My take on that is a lot of that's posturing and positioning, because I think they're still going to do business in California. Tim and Jay Lee, who's going to pay for this, right? It is not Uber or
a consumer.
It's
a consumer.
It's just another tax that the consumer will ultimately pay through the fares. Mm-hmm. So, I think this just kind of comes down cost of doing business. And if all this goes through, and we can get into whether I agree with it or not, and shock, spoiler alert. I probably don't, but Uber and Lyft are not going to pay for this. They might pay for a small percentage of it. It's just going down to whoever's hailing an Uber in San Francisco or LA, right, Jay Lee?
Well, so like, I think what's interesting is like there are other cities or locales where this has happened, and Uber and Lyft decided to leave because they didn't want to comply with like whatever the new requirements are. And so I don't know if I fully believe that who's going to pay is the consumer, because I think like there will be opportunity for others to step in and say like, all right, I'm going to try to fill this void and do things the way that like the laws want me to do. So I think there's interesting precedent there, but the thing that I actually thought was most interesting about this, and this is like bias, this is like CEO of Uber writing an editorial about like, you know, what they believe is like the right path forward. And I actually think there's something there to it. Like the like this op-ed goes on and on about like, why does it have to be so binary of one choice where I need to make people employees or they only can be gig workers? Like, why is there no other path forward? And of course, like, you know, they're looking to position themselves in a way where like he doesn't seem like the devil, but I don't know. I think that's interesting. Why are there only two paths forward? That's so strange. Like, why isn't there a third rail on this?
So there's another kind of wrench thrown into this whole thing. So there is also what do they call it? It's not like, it's basically a way to get out of this, right? For the California, like the population. So they're going to be voting in November on an amendment basically to this bill, which would allow ride sharing for cars and for food delivery to be actually exempted from this bill. So potentially they're going to make this thing happen, and then come November, the voters are going to go, oh yeah, for everybody except these people, because we actually like these services the way they are.
So you know what that means to me is like we're going to squat hump everybody but the ride sharing companies. So actually the better jobs that like pay a better wage that people could do as contractors within their profession, that's where it becomes problematic, not at the lowest end where you could make an argument that the most disruption in life and the most income inequality like happens.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a ballot measure is what it's called in California. And then even with this assembly bill, I think the oral arguments are like October 13th. And so by the time a decision would be made, potentially the voters will just say, hey, it doesn't matter because we don't care. Here's my issue. Back to like what Jay Lee was just saying is, if I'm a stay-at-home mom, right? And let's say I drop my kids off at school when we have actual in-person school, and then I want to go out in the afternoon and make a couple of bucks, you know, picking people up from the airport and driving them to their hotel or whatever, right? Let's just say I want to do that for 4 or 5 hours a week. I mean, basically that takes away all of that. And that's how like the whole rideshare thing started, right? It was like, I have a car and I'm going to go and use my car and, you know, to take somebody for a ride and have them pay me, but I don't want to exchange cash. So I'm going to use this app. And that's basically how Uber and Lyft got started. And I'm like, I don't understand why. By the way, I hate California. I don't hate all of California. I like the beaches and some of the other stuff. But for the most part, doing business in California is the biggest pain in the ass in the world. Mm-hmm. And why they would ever decide to do this is beyond me. Because if you want to be a taxi driver, go be an effing taxi driver. If you want a part-time job where you make a couple extra bucks, do a rideshare program. But don't force everybody who wants to earn a couple of bucks on a part-time job to be a taxi driver. And, you know, and here's what California is trying to decide to do is to say, oh, everybody deserves paid time off and insurance and all this stuff. I'm like, well, yeah, if that's what they want to do for a profession, that gets back to Jay Lee. I think what the Uber CEO said was, hey, maybe we do want some of our drivers to be full-time and be employees of ours and have these benefits and do this. But maybe we also want another option where somebody can just go, hey, I'm just completely like on demand, part-time, whenever I want. And I just want to do a rideshare thing and be a contractor. Like, why can't we do both?
You know, like the ironic thing about this is in California, the reason why it's a pain to do business there is that like they've got all these laws, all these precedents that they try to set in the vein of being a progressive state, right? And I think like the ironic thing to me is like as a progressive state, like part of what like the third path is like create the safety net and give those things to your residents, health insurance, sick leave, and some of these things like they do make available, but like to put the onus solely on a company and make the mandate that they, you know, reclassify people because of those reasons. I don't know. It's just kind of ironic to me, like create the safety net elsewhere. Like don't put it on them.
So we're talking about Uber and Lyft because that's kind of the sexy thing, right? Because I think it went really after them in a big way when they had this Assembly Bill 5. The reality is if this goes forward and becomes legislation in California, Uber and Lyft are like the least worries that companies have. If you think about over-the-road truck drivers, right, that are owner-operators, they own their truck and they lease it out to a company to move freight all over the country. What this basically then does not allow them to be a contractor. They would have to be a full-time employee of the company that they're actually working for to deliver freight. And they would have to deliver all these benefits. So you couldn't be an independent owner operator in the state of California any longer. Now, could you be outside of that and come in and back? I don't know, but I'll tell you, a lot of states are trying to do this legislation like California is at the same ABC test in their own states, which then would cause this problem. New York's the biggest one right now. Unions love this because they want more employees that they can become bargaining members for them, right? So they would love this. Google, who has over 300,000 contractors, more than their full-time workforce, is like they have to be crapping their pants right now going, wait a minute, this would completely change how we run our business. And what they might do is just to say, hey, we're going to hire all these contractors, but we're just going to do it in a state like Delaware or something where, you know, they don't care. And, you know, everybody wants to do work in Delaware or do business in Delaware because they're so business friendly. I do think you'll have this kind of almost blue state, red state thing happening with, okay, where do we want to actually do work, you know? But I guess if you're housed in California and you're a contractor, it's going to be super tough for you right now to determine what that is. Katie.
Tim, I've got a question for you. We're both involved with recruiting companies. You do more contractors by way of business than probably we do. What's this slippery slope here that keeps you up at night related to your core business with really high-end contractors? Where, like, you know, what keeps you up at night about this as these little rumblings happen at the low level? There's always unintended consequences, right?
Yeah, no. And I think, you know, it's always been, if any state like attorneys general wanted to go after some of these companies, it would be so easy because the independent kind of a part of your work. So if I'm an engineer and I'm at a company and I'm doing this work, usually there's somebody at the company going, hey, we need you to do this work. They're not independently doing this on their own. Somebody's kind of telling them. There's not a scope that says, oh, here's the scope of the project. Now you deliver it. That's not what happens. And so there's the slippery slope is that pretty much any one of these organizations who are using contract at a high level, especially around the tech world, or like nurses, like contract nurses, they're on the floor. Do you think a nurse just goes into a patient's room and does whatever they want? No, they have a nursing manager going, hey, by the way, you need to go see patient X and you need to go see patient Y. And they're being directed at what to do. They're not doing this on their own. So it impacts every single industry in the U.S. right now. And if California gets their way and other ones go back and get the same kind of legislation, it would completely change the landscape of full-time employment and what that looks like in the U.S. It's a major deal.
So, you know, when I think about this and I think about what you just described versus what's going on in California with rideshare, you know, I guess like the other segment I would bring in, Tim and Jay Lee, is that this kind of comes down to like the global economy too. Don't forget about the global nature of everything that's going on. Yeah. And if your intent is to be anti-gig worker, and by the way, we've never thought about high-end contractors along the lines of what you just discussed as the same as rideshare. But if your intent is to really make sure that there are really good jobs and good opportunity for everybody in America, I don't think you can do that without really thinking about the global economy and how much work that you offshore for a fraction of the cost that looks a lot from a cost perspective like the gig economy. So yeah. I don't know why we automatically, well, I know why, but I just don't think we can automatically go after companies like Uber and Lyft, anybody else that does contractors, without thinking more holistically about it. But that's a whole nother thing. And the cat's been out of the bag in terms of offshoring in the global economy for the last 40 to 50 years. It just keeps getting more and more complex. By the way, because I'm a master at tying things back to other topics, don't forget your top 20 jobs. Mm-hmm. There are contractors in those roles. And by the way, that global economy and offshoring thing, you said radiology, that's already happening in radiology, and it happens in a lot of those industries.
By the way, there is a carve out in the AB5 legislation in California for medical professionals like physicians, because again, they're so desperate for getting physicians that they're like, oh, well, we better not like screw with that. Like that's one of the things I hate about politics is it's all kind of, run like they're trying to act like they're helping people. But the reality is they're just trying to get more voters to vote their way. And this is a way that they had allowed kind of contingent of folks kind of going after that. So more to come. We'll find out sometime end of October what California is going to do, and then potentially November. The Uber Lyft thing might go away anyways, but we'll see if it actually goes through and what impact it will have on the independent contractor class, not only in California but places like New Jersey, New York, other ones that are also trying to get the same legislation. KD.
Hey, real quick, Tim and Jay Lee, what's your prediction if that goes to a vote in California? Because the dichotomy is you're in a state that's very much blue, and you would expect for there to be a lot of sensitivity to the plight of a gig worker, but you're also talking about a bunch of people that love their Uber.
And like Uber Eats and DoorDash.
Yeah. What's your prediction on that? If it goes to a statewide vote, Jay Lee?
I'm gonna bet that Uber and Lyft will still exist in California. And the reason why is like the things that you say, but also like places where they've been able to get rid of Uber. It's like smaller jurisdictions, cities where you can get like a true block of people who all think more of a block of people who think similarly. So like Austin, Texas is like one that like people will point to where I think, that's feasible. But in California, I don't know. And then the other factor is, I don't know if people's mail-in ballots will find their way to wherever they need to find their way. So who knows if we'll even know how many people voted.
Tim?
Yeah, no, I totally think that they will vote to eliminate Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and all of these services away from this proclamation or legislation so that they can still use those. They're blue, but man, they're also techies and they love the aspect of being able to use that. So again, it becomes a personal thing, right? Like, I want the best thing for the greater good of society. But, wait a minute, I don't have a car and I need Uber. Otherwise, I can't get to work and I can't go to the bar and I can't do whatever I need all day long. So then the personal aspect comes in and people start voting personal much more than greater good, just in my estimation for that. So, all right, that's what we have for you guys this week. I love that topic, by the way. I think it has much more. I think we'll be talking about that more all the way to the end of the year than what we think we will, because I think it has more ramifications, especially in a down economy. And especially with a potential Democratic president, election, stuff like that happening, that this could really gain a lot of steam. And I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a major issue into 2021. That being said, I need to go because I have a spirit painting that's going to happen this afternoon at my house. And I'm going to update everybody next week on my spirit painter. And Katie has this look on his face like, I hate your guts right now that you're going to go spirit painting.
Is there like a couple's massage table that comes like when you bring the spirit painter to your house?
He's not coming to the house. By the way, he's not coming to the house. He's in Maui. He lives a better life than all of we do. We're doing this via Zoom.
What?
Yeah, by the way. So I'll give everybody an update next week because it's fascinating and I can't wait to be a part of it just so I can have the experience to be able to crap on it later on a podcast next week. All right, HR Famous, we are out. He is Kris Dunn. She is Jessica Lee. I'm Tim Sack, and I talked way too much this week. I'm not going to talk next week besides the spirit painting thing. I will see you guys later. We are out.